Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's Ideas Sharing webinar. I'm Paul, and I work in the marketing team here at eviivo. And joining me today, as always, we have David Weston, Chairman of the B&B Association, Ian and Alex from eviivo. And today's webinar very much continues the discussions on things that we all need to be doing now in terms of getting ourselves ready for when business and bookings return. Hopefully that's not too far away now, but lots to prepare in the lead up to that. And we'll be talking to three guest owners this week who are doing lots in order to get ready for that reopening. And we have Gemma Conway from Cotswold Cottage Gems, Wayne Jones, owner of number 21 Brighton down on the south coast, and Anthony Davies, owner of Cozy Dragons in Wales, coming on later as well, to hear all about the things and processes and protocols they're putting in place to be ready for what will be the new norm in terms of travel and holidays going forward. So thanks very much for everyone for joining today. As I say at the start of all these webinars, this really is a platform for us to share ideas and learn from each other. So huge thanks to everybody that's been emailing during the week into the eviivo the events at eviivo.com email address. And we'll be covering off some of those ideas and questions today, and I've been answering some of those directly as well. So thanks again. If indeed you want to raise anything or a question as we're talking today, or ideas, you can do so using the chat functionality in the Zoom window. It's just at the bottom to the right of center, the chat window there for you to contact us, and Alex will be monitoring that through all the way through, and I'm sure we'll throw up any sort of general questions that we can cover off. Good stuff. So without further ado then, we'll go over to David, who works tirelessly in his role as chairman of the B&B Association with his ear to the government. He's got an update for us. David.
Hi, thanks, Paul. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you all. Just for those who don't know us, we're the trade association for B&B and guest house and small hotel owners across the UK. So we're here to inform, support and represent you and fight your corner with government and regulators. And just a brief update on things that have been happening recently, particularly the last week since the webinar last week. Some of you will know all about this saga of the local authority discretionary grant fund. This was the £617 million announced on the 2nd of May. We'd been lobbying for about 6 weeks on this to get some funds for council tax paying B&Bs, because the first grants were all for people on the business rate system. That 600 million plus was announced on 2nd of May, but we quickly discovered people eligible for the self-employed scheme couldn't get it, and that was a problem because obviously a lot of, or most council tax paying B&Bs are self-employed, but they might not get much from that scheme. So 3 more weeks of lobbying. Last Saturday, this Saturday just gone, the rules were changed. They've now done what we've asked, and that local authority discretionary grant fund is now available to you, even if you're eligible for the self-employed fund, or indeed have got self-employed fund money, which many people have started to get already. So that's good news. The message on that is to check your local authority's website, look up the discretionary grant fund, look up, search for help for small businesses, because each local authority is in charge of doling out those funds, and so that's where to go to apply for it. The other thing was, and again we discussed last week, the so-called protocols that UK Hospitality have brought out on a draft document based on opening hotels and accommodation businesses on the 4th of July, if that's the date we're allowed to open. That's provisional. We've been sharing that with our members and getting lots of feedback on that, and we are working on a B&B and guest house focused guidance for opening under COVID for our members. So a lot of work on that going on from now on. Visit Britain are talking about a kite mark scheme, which would be welcome. I think 58% of consumers say they'd welcome that sort of scheme to help give consumers confidence once we all open up. And certainly we've been pressing the government for funds for a big communications campaign to give people confidence once the 4th of July comes, if that's the date, to go out and travel the UK, stay in B&Bs and guest houses. And there's going to be a lot of communications needed on that, to a PR campaign from government and from people like Visit Britain. Briefly, also last week I mentioned that you could, in theory, switch from council tax to business rates, and then backdate that switch in certain circumstances and apply for a grant. We've heard from members in England who've done that, but we also heard from Kevin, Nicky White, who've done that in Scotland, who've let us know that it was a bit of a faff for them. It took a while, and it involved, as our member in England actually, involved roping in their MP as well at one point. But still, they managed it, and they said that they got it backdated, and they applied for a grant. In fact, the grant monies were in their account within 3 days. So it can be done, and it has been done by some. And just finally, on a sort of a positive note, that we're all trying to work towards reopening. It's great to see that gardens are now open, even if ticketed, that car showrooms are going to be open 1st of June, and that all the rest of the shops will be open from 15th of June. B&Bs and guest houses, hotels should be open from 4th of July, although that's still a provisional date. So we've got a few weeks yet to plan for it, but it's good to have a date to work towards, and we've very much said to the government, and our colleagues have in every part of the tourism industry, that we really need that date to be firm as soon as possible. We need time to work up to it. We need to know when we can take firm bookings for. This is obviously one of the problems everyone has. When can you take bookings for? We need to know whether that 4th of July date is firm or not as soon as we possibly can. And we've asked for it by the 1st of June to be firmed up, but that's in government hands. But anyway, we're working to focus 100% on reopening and recovery.
That's great, David. And yeah, so important to have a date and the overall plan. That's how it fits into the general scheme of things as well, isn't it? But the steps seem to be happening in the right pace. Of course, we'd like it to all be open as soon as possible, but everything needs to be in place before that can happen. Your guidelines and so on, the survey that you did, have you started to sort of, or we're looking to do, is that something you're still doing, are you getting good information and intel from that?
We're getting members who we've shared the guidelines with, they've all, or the UK hospitality document with, have been sending in lots and lots of suggestions, questions, things to consider. So there's tons of material to go through on all that. The government are not going to be sort of rubber stamping the UK hospitality document. What they're going to be doing, the government is going to be issuing what they call high-level guidance, which is very non-detailed, just general principles. And for our sector, as well as they have done for the other sectors that have opened so far, those would be far too high level, not detailed enough for a B&B to follow, or any individual business. And that's where the individual sector guidance is going to come in. We think the one UK hospitality produced is great in many ways, but it covers too many sectors and it's too hotel focused. So we're going to streamline it down for B&Bs. And we've been impressing on the government things like concerns about PPE. If to what extent B&Bs and guest houses might have to use PPE, then if everyone's going to be ordering it, every hotel in the country, every guest house in the country is going to need to be ordering it, then is there going to be enough? Are they making provision for that? We've asked these kind of questions. And also another big thing that's going to make a massive difference is that they're looking at the 2-meter social distancing rule, which is almost unique to the UK. There's, I think, only 2 other European countries who use 2 meters. The rest are 1.5 or 1, and the World Health Organization guideline is 1 meter. So, and of course, the difference between 1 meter and 2 meters in making a hospitality business profitable is just like the difference between maybe having a business and not having a business. So all of the sector are pushing the government to consider that, obviously only if the scientific advice allows it, but it has obviously been the recommendation from the World Health Organization and used in many other countries. So we're hoping that that will change too.
Yeah,
Could I just ask, David? We've talked before about the sort of the hospitality industry catch-all. Is there any movement on sort of ordering of phases of when things might be open in terms of self-catering, B&Bs, hotels, or are they all kind of lumped in together?
They all currently lumped in together with this 4th of July date, which is still provisional. And as you say, I mean, some categories could open sooner than others, and there's arguments to say, why can't somebody stay in a self-catering cottage in the middle of nowhere, sort of now almost? Why wait for the 4th of July? It's very different from a 400-room Hilton hotel. But nevertheless, the sort of accommodation types have been lumped together to some extent, although there may be slight differences on opening things like caravan sites, campsites, as opposed to serviced accommodation.
Yeah.
But we're still waiting to hear the government's making final decisions on all that.
Okay, and just picking up on the local authority grant, which is great news that at last we've got some clarity on that, and it's kind of gone the way that we all wanted. You said, I think, that you can apply for that if you're eligible for other support and if you've already received other support. Is that correct?
You can. It's the self-employed support that is particularly changed, because we wanted that change because a lot of people just automatically are eligible for it, and HMRC has been in writing to them, and anyone who's self-employed, which is most of those small B&Bs on council tax, would be eligible for it, but they wouldn't necessarily get very much for it. So that's where we wanted the change. So this new discretionary grant fund is available to you even if you have the self-employed fund, whether you're eligible for it or got it or anything, that's fine. But if you've already had a grant previously, you can't apply for another one. This is supposed to be a sort of a top up. It's to mop up people who haven't been helped elsewhere, but there's an exception for the self-employed scheme.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
That's great. Good stuff. Okay, thank you, David. Alex, any questions out there currently before we have the first owner guest on today?
Yeah, we're getting quite a few questions through. Just in terms of the dates that you mentioned, David, is that specific to England? Do you know if Wales and Scotland have different dates?
That's a good point. Yes, that is specific to England. That's the UK government saying those dates, and it's specific to the 4th of July date is specific to England. There's going to be later dates. It seems like they're going to be later dates in Scotland. The Scottish government published a separate document. We shared these documents, recovery plans, with our members, the England one and the Scottish one. Those dates have got to be firmed up in Scotland as well. So no, you're right. There's a good point. There's going to be slightly different dates. We're a bit disappointed that if different countries in the UK are going to open up at different rates, it's not necessarily ideal. But obviously, their devolved governments can make their own decisions. So it looks like Scotland will be a bit lower later, and we're hearing 9th of July, but that's just sort of speculation and not firm yet.
Okay, great. And we also have Rachel Cooper who wanted to ask a question. Rachel, are you there?
Yes, I am. Mm-hmm.
Hi, go ahead.
Okay, hi, I'm Rachel. I'm run a self-catering down in beautiful sunny Kent, surrounded by a lovely garden, and I love my gardening. I fill it with cut flowers, especially for this holiday season. I fill all my rooms with my guest house anyway, with lots of vases of flowers, and I do actually get an awful lot of positive feedback, as you can imagine, on my lovely arrangements. And my question is, I did hear mention a couple of weeks ago, somebody said, oh, well, of course, I'll be taking my flower arrangements out. And I thought, oh no, I love my flower arrangements. What's the opinion on this?
Hi, Rachel. That's a very interesting question. And I'm not sure that we know the answer to that clearly. I've been doing a little bit of research since you sent that one through to us. And I found various articles. Obviously, florists are selling their flowers, and there's nothing on any of their websites about concerns over that. I found an old NHS article from, I think, about 2009, talking about flowers not being allowed on wards, but that any concern there is more around sort of the inconvenience or the problems if flowers get knocked over and vases breaking and things like that, rather than any sort of health issues. There was something about bacteria in water in flowers, but that's from a very long time ago. So it doesn't seem to be any sort of NHS biological bacterial issue. I've looked at the Dutch flower marketplace, international marketplace, and they've said that, you know, as far as they believe, COVID-19 is a coronavirus. Coronaviruses are passed on via animals and humans. There's no transmission through flowers, and they don't expect this one to be acting any differently. So as far as I can see, and the only issue seems to me to be around concerns regarding delivery. So if your flowers are being delivered in the same way as anything else is being delivered, then there's contact involved in that. If you're taking your flowers from your garden, that concern is removed from there. So, you know, without giving a sort of definitive scientific answer on it, the research that we've done hasn't sort of shown anything on that. Now, if anyone else has any other opinions on that or thoughts, and I'm quite happy to receive those. Be interested to see what people take. But I think flowers from your own garden that only you have handled, to me, looks like a very low risk, you know, thing. I know we have had discussions about people removing soft furnishings from their rooms, but I think that's a slightly different thing, because people are sitting on those, people are rubbing those, people aren't really touching flowers, they're just there to look at. So I think that, from what I've seen, there's a very low risk or concern there, to be honest, Rachel.
Excellent answer. Thank you.
but yeah, I mean, we'd be happy if anyone, and we never know who's in the audience. We have environmental health officers, we have various people sort of get in touch afterwards and give us answers. If anyone is a florist with a qualification in microbiology, then give us a. But that, as far as I can see, is our answer to your question.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on, Rachel. And I guess the flowers will be changed each time for each booking, so they're not going to be sort of staying in the rooms. It's going to be refreshed all the time, isn't it? So yeah, and great answer there from Ian. That may be a future in horticulture up there.
Yeah, the future's a florist beckons.
Good stuff. Okay, thanks guys. So now we'll move on to our first guest today, and that is Gemma. Gemma from Cotswold Cottage Gems. Are you there?
Hi, yes, I am here.
Hello, Gemma. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thanks.
Good stuff. Thank you so much for joining us today. So maybe we can kick off just with a little bit of your background and how you sort of set up Cotswold Cottage Gems and the type of properties that you have there.
Okay, so I started off as actually a family PA, nothing really to do with properties, and then that moved into managing their short tenancies on the estate. And I really enjoyed that element of it, and overseeing contractors and speaking with the tenants. And so we hatched the idea of Cotswold Cottage Gems back in May 2018. So we've not been around for long. And since then, we've built up a portfolio of 7 very individual boutique self-catering holiday lets all around the Cotswolds, and also a 14-bedroom bed and breakfast. So we've kind of got the best of both worlds. We can cater for families with dogs and in beautiful villages, but then you've got the fully serviced B&B, which is fully staffed, lovely breakfast in the morning. So we feel as a company we're doing a bit of everything.
Sounds lovely. A nice mix as well, because you'll get different,
yeah, really nice mix.
different parties because of that as well. So it makes it interesting. Great. So what have you guys sort of been doing during lockdown? I know when we spoke earlier in the week, you mentioned that you had some guests in initially, but you've kind of focused more on sort of the refurbishment side of things now.
We did, yeah. In the guest house, we housed a key worker for a week, for the first week. And then when she left, we have been very much focusing on all of just minor refurbishments, making sure that the portfolio has got a very similar theme. So if you know you stay in one of the properties, you're going to get the same kind of standard in one of the others. So we've been really lucky to keep some people on and give them maintenance tasks and then lots of gardening and being outside, keeping everybody motivated. So I think by July, when we fling the doors open again and say welcome back, the properties will be nice and clean, you know, just exceptional standard really.
Fantastic. And I guess if you've been sort of running a couple of years now, are you starting to get sort of repeat guests as well? And are they sort of
We do.
have to be deferred booking wise, or how do you sort of manage them?
So again, I think we've been really lucky because we've had lots of positive interaction with our guests from day one. When we do have a repeat booking, they don't mind where it is as long as it's one of our cottages. So we can kind of put them in Stow-on-the-Wold or Bourton-on-the-Water, and they'll know it's the same kind of standard. But in terms of the deferred bookings, we've been approaching that and saying, look, we'll honour the price. You can have a booking up until December 2021 with us, as long as you the original one. And people have been very happy to do that. And they may have been booked into one of the properties which isn't available on their preferred dates in 2021. So we've allowed them to kind of chop and change. So we've got that versatility, keep everybody happy.
Okay, fantastic. And I guess the communications sounds like it's sort of it's run through the business ever since you started it, but it's so important now, isn't it, just to keep both your future guests or potential new guests, but certainly the current ones just up to date with what's going on. Yeah, everyone's sort of demanding and needing of information right now. It's kind of key. Have you been sort of emailing them regularly or changing your website with messaging, things like that?
So we're newbies to social media like Facebook and Twitter and things like that. I think that's kind of get a handle on that has been important for us. So we have focused on Instagram and lots of lovely spring pictures of the Cotswolds. And then we've just started a blog on our website. So it'll be weekly updates, what we're doing. We've done some really intensive COVID-19 cleaning training courses as well. So just instilling confidence in our guests that when they do come back, they're going to be the highest standards and they're going to feel safe and confident enough to book and come again.
Brilliant. So picking up on David's point earlier, it's really sort of getting that messaging across, giving confidence to the consumer. Yes, people are going to want to travel and there'll be a whole bunch of people that just want to get away straight away, but there will be others that may be sort of umming and erring whether to go. Is it going to be safe? Is it going to be clean? So all that sort of communication is vital, I think. Interesting that the course that you sort of mentioned there, what was that, the sort of training course as such?
So online, they're offering free courses. So it's very much, it's like a home-based study. They've got some video to watch and then a selection of questions at the end, all surrounding about cleanliness and health and safety risks of COVID-19. And once you've passed that, then you can print off a certificate and take that home. Our cleaning company as well, who service all the cottages, they've made sure that they've taken a more intensive course online. But I can ping you the details later, drop you an email and let you know.
That'll be useful. No, thank you. And one of the other things that we mentioned when we briefly spoke earlier in the week is sort of around cleaning. You're going to sort of do a number of new measures just to convey that to people during their stay as well, like the kind of tick sheets or the note sheets that you mentioned with regards to posting up. Yeah. We've
got a really good 6-point risk assessment that we've done. So it's from the moment the guest checks in, whether that be a self-check-in or whether they do need a little bit of help, all the way through to when they check out. So it includes the breakfast service and everything in between servicing the rooms. We came across a really nice website. It is called Safety Signs for Less. Really great value. And it means you can adapt your signs to say what you want to say. So we've just got tons of, this room has been deep cleaned and sanitized. And so these green stickers will be on all the doors just to instill confidence in the guests, like I said. And again, you can customize them with your hotel name or your holiday home name. It's just that little personal touch that you've thought about and someone's gone, yeah, actually they know what they're doing and we are confident that the place has been looked after.
Oh, that's great. All those sort of different touch points, you know, you've got
Exactly.
to nods to them, just putting them at rest, the mind at rest, that, you know, things have been thought about so they can relax and enjoy their stay at the end of the day, which is what it's all about, isn't it? So no, that's great. And then breakfast and things, how are you going to sort of manage those going forward? I guess it's different, the self-catering side with the B&B, but
so we'll still welcome hampers. So all of the self-catering accommodation will still have a welcome hamper, which will include a hand sanitizer gel now as well for them to take away and to just carry about with them on their daily travels. The guest house, along with the government guidelines, we're probably not going to be able to offer any kind of buffet service. But what we've done is adapted our menu so that people can order a bowl of fresh fruit or a superfood bowl. So they've still got lots of options, just not a self-service buffet. So we're trying to minimize contacts and touch points at all times.
Okay, great. And layout in terms of the property itself, have you sort of moved things around, removed a lot of things we've had in the past couple of weeks is sort of about decluttering things, taking away sort of excess throws and cushions. Ian mentioned it earlier, not flowers though, we can have those.
No,
That's good.
We've limited our breakfast room. Like normally we would seat 22 guests in our breakfast room and then 16 in our overflow room. So what we've done is we've limited that just to 10 customers in the main dining room, and that'll be it. And there's a one-way system. And
Okay.
hide your hands when you come in, when you leave. And I think if they see everybody doing that, I mean, there is the question about masks and gloves and throwaway aprons for service. We have ordered some stock, but until we hear on the 4th of July the exact guidelines, we're not sure what to do about that at this moment in time.
Okay, it's great. So all these processes coming into place, getting yourselves ready, getting those communications out as well. How are the staff? Because I know you've got a small team there, haven't you, that helps you run the properties. Are they sort of all up to speed and sort of fully ready, and or are they worried about sort of the new rate?
They're completely up to speed with everything we're doing. They've all been through their training. The staff that have been furloughed, we have weekly updates with them just to let them know what's going on, which rooms we've refurbished, what they're going to be doing when they come back. It's just about keeping them motivated and being really positive with them. So they're happy, and they're very happy. They're desperate to come back to work, actually.
Sure.
They're begging. So yeah,
Sorry, good.
No, I was just going to say that they're very happy. We really want to focus on the guest experience. So we're not going to move our prices. We're going to keep them the same as they always were. And we're just going to focus on, because we can't offer the level of service we were, we're going to focus on all the other things that we can do.
Perfect. And the Cotswolds itself, there obviously tourism super important to the region at this time of year. Is the general feel within the area they want the tourism back as soon as possible?
So the smaller villages, we have Bourton on the Water, which is obviously a massive tourist attraction, has been the last 2 weekends really, really busy. I think it's great for businesses. All the ice cream parlours are open. I think the local residents are a little bit more nervous, and they really do want to wait until the 4th of July. So I think local residents are very much backing any kind of government guidance, whereas people who are desperate to get out again now, so maybe sort of 50-60% of the population, are ready to just go back to work, go back to tourist places. So we've seen a big divide between locals and tourists.
It's going to be a balance, isn't it? And proving everything can work in unison, I guess, going forward. But all the measures you're making and things like that to show that every precaution is being taken to keep everyone safe. Yeah, that's really important, I guess, going forward. And then, so what's the thinking? Perhaps we'll finish on with plans for Cotswold Cottage Gems for the future. Obviously, this season, I guess it's all about sort of getting in as much as you can now in maybe what might be a slightly truncated season. But what's the plans going forward?
So we feel that probably until around about October, bookings are going to be quite suppressed still anyway. So we've got the time to focus on some more acquisitions, looking for some more cottages or potentially another B&B, which is really positive, just expanding the business, growing, employing more staff, providing more jobs in the Cotswolds. So that's the idea, that's the plan.
Fantastic. No, it sounds great. And yeah, wish you all the luck when we all do open, hopefully at the start of July. 4 weeks away, but I guess still lots to get in place ready for that. But it sounds like you've made some great steps to do that already, and wishing you a successful season. Thank you for coming on today, Gemma. Appreciate it. Good stuff. Okay, Alex, any questions before Ian picks up the next guest?
There's quite a few through, but just people feeding back that they're getting ready as well, and looking for ways to train their staff, like their housekeepers, and get some kind of certification. We don't kind of promote anyone in particular, but I suppose when we have the guidelines and the kite mark scheme, they can go with that.
Yeah, so I mean, Gemma mentioned the company that she was using. Maybe Gemma, you kindly said you'd send me the link to that. Perhaps we can.
I will. I'll do that.
Perfect. We can throw that up on the COVID-19 eviivo.com page. We also had the guys from Station B&B on a few weeks ago over in Derry, and they also had a course that they went on as well, and what we're shouting about was very good too. I'll dig out those details and mention those at the end in the wrap up, because perhaps that's another one to highlight too. So they are out there, but great that people are sort of thinking about that and wanting to sort of get that extra qualification. It's going to do a power of good, I think, to have that and convey that to your customers. Good stuff. Okay, great. So Ian, do you want to pick up? Yes.
Okay, so next up, I'd like to welcome Wayne Jones from number 27 in Brighton. Are you there, Wayne?
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Hello there. Well, welcome to the webinar. And it's 27, isn't it? Not 21, as Paul said earlier.
It's 27, yes.
You don't want to stay at 21. I've seen that.
No, don't stay there.
So how are things in Brighton? How was it this weekend? Is it sort of a busy bank holiday weekend as normal, or?
Yeah, it was. I think it was busier in the week last week. The beach down the front got very busy. Over the weekend, the council decided to restrict access to the beach. People were still allowed down there, but it was just the amount of people. So they've not got all the facilities open. Some of the bars are open, selling takeaways, beers and food. But not all the facilities are open. So they were trying to discourage people from coming to Brighton, which we've been sort of reposting their social media posts as well, just to say, we want you back, just not yet.
It's not quite yet. We'll talk more and on that, but tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been there running the B&B. You've got one of the TripAdvisor top 5 B&Bs in Brighton, so you must be doing something right. How long have you been there?
Yeah, we've been here 3 years, so we've been sort of either number 4 or number 5 on TripAdvisor down here while we've been here. We're just a 5-bedroom B&B, just myself and my husband run it. It's the two of us are kind of the face of number 27, which I think is going to be a little bit strange going forward, because our thinking is people will want less contact with us. So we're sort of thinking, what can we do to change the business so people see less of us? Which is a bit strange.
It's a strange scenario, isn't it, for hospitality that's based on welcome and advice and things like that, to try and keep out of people's way, kind of thing. And what have you been doing during lockdown to keep yourselves busy?
The rooms have had another lick of paint. They all got done up last year in a big way.
That's good.
So they just all got another lick of paint again. We've always just been thinking, what what will people want from us once we reopen? I'm a member of a couple of Facebook groups for B&B owners and other hospitality owners, and just getting lots of information from there. We just kind of thought, let's put into place what would make us feel comfortable if we went somewhere. So we've decided to virtually go contactless for the whole building. We've had a PIN code entry installed on the door, so we've not got to greet guests. So we thought that might be a little bit awkward greeting a guest and saying, "Can you just stand back 2 meters while I open the door?" and then walk back.
Yeah.
And then we'll just have a little pack ready for them in reception, ready and waiting, so they can go straight up to their room. Breakfast for us, we've decided to close our breakfast room because it is small. I do have to squeeze between tables to serve people sometimes.
Okay.
So breakfast in there, we're going to have a slimmed down breakfast menu, and it's going to be served to the room. And we're giving the guests the option of having room only as well, so that if they want a proper breakfast, they can go out somewhere for that.
I mean, I guess you're lucky there that you've got, dozens of places serving great breakfasts of all varieties just on your doorstep.
Yeah, we're very lucky. We're right in the centre of Brighton, and a lot of our guests don't seem to come down for breakfast anyway. I don't know.
Surely that's part of the appeal of going to Brighton, is you don't have to get up early the next day. I could see that working. And in terms of grants and things to keep you going, have you had any success in sort of give support for the business?
Yeah, we qualified for the smaller grant, so we got that. But we knew that would only keep us going for about 3 months. So we applied for the bounce back loan once the government rejigged it about a month ago. It was so much easier to apply for. The day it was announced, we applied, and the funds were in our bank within 24 hours.
Wow.
You could apply for up to 25% of your turnover. We didn't go quite for the full amount, but it was a very easy process. So quite happily recommend doing that if you need it.
Yeah, because as we said on the webinars previously, David's brought up that that it is a loan, but it's fully backed by the government. You don't have to pay it back for a year or something, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interest free for a year, and you can pay it back over 6 years. So we worked out the monthly costs of what that would be for over 6 years. Under normal circumstances, it's quite reasonable, and we should be able to pay that back.
Yeah. And what's the feeling in the town generally? You said you're in sort of various forums and stuff. Obviously, you're running your place very, very tightly if you've got such good reviews and stuff. Is there a general feeling of optimism coming through now, or is it still overwhelmingly uncertainty?
Yeah, I think people are just sort of raring to go now. I'm in a WhatsApp group with quite a lot of the other B&B owners I rode. There's about 12 of us just on our one street. And everyone's kind of really just wants to get going. They obviously understand that we're not going to be going until the 4th of July, but everyone's been doing the same, getting things ready. And they're raring to go.
And the attractions in the town, I guess the main attraction is the beach, but there's the eye thing, isn't there? And you're hoping that they're all going to be on streaming.
Yeah, we've got the i360. I think they could quite easily manage that. It's a quite a big attraction. They can manage the crowds in that. The pier, I'm not quite sure how they're going to do it. The only thing I've heard at the moment is they're going to sort of have a one-way system around it, but quite how that works on the fairground part of it, I don't know. And they've got all the arcade machines there. But the other main attractions that are coming to Brighton are to socialise, to go out of an evening, restaurants, have a drink, go to a club. That's my only concern, is that will people want to come here? They all might prefer going to a country location where they're away from people.
Yes, I take your point, and that's something that we've spoken about on here before. But I guess you haven't got the challenges that perhaps there are in the Cotswolds of the local populace being cautious of income. It's because Brighton's always been such a lively place. Presumably, there's not so much concern from the local population about tourists coming back. I guess they would open them quite welcomely.
Yeah, no, I've not heard any concerns as yet. People, I think the sort of touristy parts are sort of away from the residential parts. So yeah, people don't seem to be opposed to them coming back. I think we're used to quite a population.
And maybe if we can get this slightly closer contact, where we can stand a metre or a metre and a half away, then that will help. Well, I understand you've got another job in the meantime to help with that.
Yes, I applied for the contact tracing. That's supposedly going live next week.
Right.
So yeah, I just thought I wanted to do something. I've done what the government's asked me to do and sort of sit on my backside for the last couple of months.
Yeah.
You do feel a little bit kind of useless. So I thought, what else could I do? They recruited about 20,000 of us in a couple of weeks. We've been training there over the last week, and we should be going live next week. So
okay.
It'll be for about 3 months initially, and I think while we're going to be quieter here, I can manage that as well as doing that job.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will give you some nice sort of insider knowledge on what's going on as well, won't it? And a sort of a sense of the bigger picture of what's happening in the city.
Yes, yeah. I suppose we'll know from how busy we are to how if it's going up or down.
Yeah, whether you need to get any more rooms ready or not, kind of thing. Yeah, no,
I'm hoping we're not going to be busy at all, but I think we will be initially. yeah.
Well, good luck with the new job, and good luck with job. We do hope that Brighton's up and running very soon. I know what a popular party town it is, and be a different city, I'm sure, but hopefully one that's been around for so long as for welcoming visitors since Prince Regent kind of thing. I'm sure they'll find a way of making it work. So thanks for your time this afternoon, Wayne. Lovely talking to you.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks, guys. Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, Ian. So just before we move on to the final guest this afternoon, I've just dug out the company that Station and Bridge B&B mentioned when they were on a couple of weeks ago around the sort of post-COVID cleaning solutions. They're called Bright Academy. So I don't know if Alex can dig out a website address for Bright Academy and perhaps pop it up on the chat. But as I say, they were on the webinar probably maybe a month ago now or so, but they've completed their training too, a bit like the guys at Cotswolds Cottage Gems, the company they used, and said it was really good, really informative, really useful, and has given them a lot of confidence going forward in terms of managing the cleaning in the post-lockdown environment. So, so Bright Academy, the one that they recommended. Okay, good. Well, let's move on then to the final guest today. We have Anthony Davies with us from the lovely named Cozy Dragons. Are you there, Anthony?
I am. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks, Anthony. How are things over in Wales today?
Yeah, well, like everywhere else, sunny, good. And we're a little bit behind England. So it's interesting listening to David's talk, going, we're not quite... well, we just don't know when we're going to be unlocked, but hopefully not too far behind.
Yeah, let's hope so. So before you tell us a little bit about your business, maybe, and how you sort of came to run it, the name, brilliant name. How did that come about?
Thank you. So I'm a traditional landlord. I got into being a landlord back in 2007, having been in corporate life as an accountant and salesperson. Did some developments of an old family business. and back only 3 years ago decided to move into the short-term let Airbnb service accommodation, whatever you want to call it, market, and transformed. Now got 6 properties which we've transformed into serviced apartments. The name Cozy Dragons, well, clearly we take it off the Welsh dragon. It's not always fierce, except when the English come over to play rugby. But we obviously try and build on that dragon theme and being cozy and inviting people to come and stay.
Yeah, that's great. Fantastic. And you've got that really cute little motto as well with the little dragon, so working well. And then during the period of lockdown as such, I understand you've had some guests in some of the properties at least.
Yeah, we've worked hard to get guests in. We're very different. I'll be going probably to stay at the previous 2 speakers' places because they sound fantastic, but very different setup. Ours are very much serviced apartments. So all self-check-in. It lends itself for individuals to stay there. The rules in Wales have tightened up, well, particularly in one of the counties we're in. Initially, we had a number of doctors staying. The rules have now changed that we have to have 1 bathroom, 1 person. So for an apartment that can normally sleep 6 or 8 people, we either can have 1 family or 1 person. So we've concentrated initially on the NHS market. We have our own website and very much put up on that. Splash page, they call it, so a landing page, advertising that we are still open and for key workers and NHS. We contacted the NHS directly, and it's quite a complicated thing to do because it's various departments. So I've done that side, but also we've looked at the homeless, something that many people maybe shy away from, and I'll be honest and say we did initially, but we've embraced that now, and we've done a little bit with that, and that's gone well. Key workers, in fact, just after we spoke earlier this week, we had 2 bookings for this weekend. Yeah, so yeah, normally that wouldn't be exciting, but now at the moment having 2 bookings is hugely exciting. So short stays, guys working, doing various utilities, in fact.
Okay.
We've also had, which you might not think about, insurance as well, where we were affected by flooding in some of the towns by us. And one of those people was Premier Inn. When they closed down, they had surplus people, and we took over one of those for a month. So overall, we've been, I wouldn't say very busy at all, but we've had some things ticking over.
That's good. I mean, one thing that this situation has sort of thrown up is, I guess, this idea of different markets that you may not have sort of thought about or even looked to for potential guests previously, but now, of course, more on a needs must basis. Also from their side, I guess, as other sort of hotels maybe where they've stayed in the past have shut down, they've still had to find places to stay, and I guess different types of accommodations come up on their radar too. But is that maybe a sort of revenue stream that you'd look to continue perhaps going forward with some of those markets?
Yeah, I'm very much one that goes, if you ask someone, how do you get into a business? So how did I get into short-term lets? I didn't do it deliberately to start with. It was an accident, in fact. And I think a lot of businesses end up like that way, or things happen, in this case, something quite serious, COVID-19. And we've ended up looking at some other markets. And I think absolutely, after this is finished, we will, in fact, today we renewed the contract with the homeless for another month. And we will look at some of our other properties, which we have normal lets in, as to whether we may do some of the homeless in those environments. Clearly, the homeless have been heavily hit, and so the local authorities, because they've had to get them off the streets, and so there's lack of capacity. So yeah, no, I think like any business, you've always got to look at opportunities. I think lots of other businesses, not just us. I know there's a local wine merchants we use a few doors down from us, and they've gone from just being shop-based now to doing home delivery, something they wouldn't have done before, and I suspect they will continue with that, as we will continue with our other parts.
Really, really interesting. Yeah, no, that's good. Okay, great. And one of the things you mentioned there was your website, and I can see that big splash page there. Great, sort of the NHS that you're open for. Is that something that you're sort of constantly sort of changing and tinkering with, just to sort of get the right messaging, I guess, across through the course as we evolve through the sort of situation, hopefully coming out the other side now with regards to getting bookings in. I noticed one of your reviews on there is particularly highlighting sort of the cleanliness of the property, and is that sort of where you're focusing on a little bit at the moment?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. Again, you talk about how you would change your business, or what has this done? We bought into doing our own website, in fact. So I've only been going 3 years, and this is our second website. We've completely destroyed the first one and rewrote it, and very different, just from a learning point of view. And on that point, I think it's a bit like retail. You know, people, when they build websites, they often think, that's it, I've done my website, right, I'll go off and carry on. But it's no different to a retail shop. If you open a retail shop, you don't just stock it up and redecorate it and then open the doors and forget about it. Clearly, you're constantly cleaning it, you're replenishing stock, you're updating it. I think the same has to be done with your website. And so we do monthly reviews with a website designer. We go through our stats, etc. Where's traffic coming from, social media, etc. Okay. So we spend quite a bit of time on that. At the moment, there's a Zoom meetings. Normally they're face-to-face. It's quite important. I think we're all aware that we'd all like to have just direct bookings. That's a utopia that isn't going to happen, I don't think, and neither should it necessarily. But I think one of the other things that's been proven is that if you are just on the OTA websites, when they decide they're going to close, as they did recently, you're closed. And so, again, we've been quite fortunate. Without doubt, we received some bookings because they were closed. Because obviously, people who would normally go to booking.com or Airbnb, etc., couldn't. And therefore, they were searching accommodation Abergavenny. And fortunately, we come up fairly high on that.
Yeah, super important. I think for direct bookings and so on, as people want to learn more about properties, information they can get off websites or by talking with the owners directly, going to become more important, I think, going forward, Anthony. So it's great that you're already sort of all over. And, to get bookings, you need to have a good website working for you, especially if the OTA sort of switch themselves off for a period of time. We had the Stay for Heroes page, or still have the Stay for Heroes page up and running with properties on there as well that are offering rooms at this time. But having your own website and keeping it up to date, that whole kind of shop window analogy that you were sort of alluding to there, 100% true. You need to keep on it and keep it current. And customers are going to be looking for that now, especially around the sort of cleaning side of things. When they're looking at places to book. I understand you've been sort of doing some other things though as well with regards to sort of streamlining some things within the business whilst you had a little bit of spare time.
Spare time. So this is only one of my businesses. I also have the property development side and other things. So it's been quite busy. So one of the things we look at is trying to systemize and process our business. So I have a saying, as I think we discussed, I don't like to talk to guests. Now, that's not true. I love talking to guests, but we're very much a hands-off, which particularly works with COVID-19. So unlike the previous, certainly when you run a B&B, what works for them is being hands-on. It's the character there. With us, a lot of our guests, actually, they just want to get to the accommodation, whatever time they want to get to, be there at a wedding. So very much process-driven. So I've just invested not inconsiderable amount of money on a training course, which lasts for 6 months, where I have one-to-ones with particular individuals. And it's about the whole process. So we use a lot of apps and applications. I'll throw some names out there and people can either switch off or not. The likes of Trello and Slack and Evernote, etc., etc. So the idea is, as an example, when we take a booking, it will automatically go into the system called Trello, which our cleaners use, and that booking will come in there automatically. They'll know that they have a clean to do, how many beds, etc., what the configuration is, and when they need to go in and clean. So it's all about automating it. And the reason for that is, A, to make sure we don't miss anything, reduce the workload, and to make it a lot more cost efficient, if I'm honest with you. So we spend more time on the proactive stuff. I'd rather my team were phoning people and speaking to corporate people or individuals and finding out how things went, than filling in spreadsheets, to be honest with you. So early days yet, but we'll see how it goes.
No, but it's great and fascinating, but also that, good that you've sort of used the little bit of spare time that's sort of come available to do that and invest in that, and hopefully it'll pay dividends going forward. It's great to see. And then in terms of the areas where your properties are, Wales in general, I suppose, surely must be a place that's looking forward to hopefully lots of people visiting come the time, hopefully some point early July, when we are allowed to sort of visit there again.
Yeah, I think like everybody, there's some people who are concerned about the future, as in their health, but there's a lot of people, the majority, just want to get out there, particularly business owners, and start trading again. I think hopefully there's going to be a boom for the short-term let market in the UK, or the UK tourist market in general. It's just incredible, isn't it? Bank holidays, we've got the most incredible weather, which we normally wouldn't get, and we can't go. We're not in Wales, we're not allowed to go anywhere. Abergavenny is a market town, gateway to Wales. It's on the borders, very foodie place. So we have a massive food festival, normally in September, which is well attended. Everyone's just looking to get back to normal. We're looking to get back to guests. We have both tourists, we have people visiting families, and we also have contractors. So a whole mixed market, really.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the government will give us that extra bank holiday that they sort of muted towards the end of the season, and it might help extend the season out a little bit more. Some people that perhaps haven't been able to travel over Easter, maybe they think about doing it sort of the back end of the season. It will stretch it out a little bit, and let's hope that the weather holds and we have that to look forward to as well come sort of September, October time.
Well, yeah, we also, so the one which I didn't say, our main property is the old police station in Abergavenny, which is on Baker Street. So we've named it all after Sherlock Holmes themes. And all painted and what have you. But so we have 5 apartments there, so we can sleep just over 30 people. So we do quite a lot with weddings. So hopefully there's been a lot of, unfortunately for people, being delayed weddings or postponed weddings. Hopefully those will be maybe they'll decide rather than summer wedding, they'll have autumn, winter weddings. So we'll see a boom in that as well on that side.
Very good. Yeah, let's hope so. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you so much for joining us today. You've been really, really insightful. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
If Wales starts to open up too. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks very much. Cheers, Paul.
Good stuff. Right. Alex, we've got a couple of minutes. Was there any questions before we sort of wrap things up?
Well, a couple of people, Richard and Steve, asking for how long they will have to leave between guest stays, but I suppose we won't be able to stay until closer to the lift of the lockdown, I suppose.
Yeah, we talked about that quite a lot, didn't we, on the webinar or last week? And while 72 hours seems to be the length of time to allow any sort of trace of any potential infection sort of dying out within the room, sort of 24 hours could also be workable with what was said, 90% or so of it disappearing, and then a thorough clean seemed to be the kind of midpoint that sort of still made things commercially viable. But as you say, Alice, the specific guidelines I guess will come. David, I don't know if you had anything more to add on that in terms of different timings between lengths of stays.
Yeah, there's nothing in, for instance, the UK hospitality guidelines on that recommend gaps between guests. You can just have guests on consecutive days, but obviously the cleaning regimes and things are very different. So cleaning is going to be a big focus, obviously, and taking away certain things that are touched very often. We talked about the soft furnishings and everything, but no, that in none of the guidelines so far as there's been a specific recommendation about leaving an extra gap between guests, unless, as you say, there's a COVID-19 case or suspected case, somebody with symptoms, where you are advised to leave 72 hours. But we'll wait for the official government guidance, but I don't think they're going to go into that level of detail.
Okay. Good stuff. All good, Alex?
Yep, that's good. Thank you.
Good. All right. Well, just to tie up today then, before we go, just want to highlight the Holidays for Heroes campaign that we have ongoing at the moment, the crowdfunder page where we're looking for any members of the public can contribute to try and generate a number of vouchers for key workers to then use for stays in properties across the UK, giving something back, a bit of a thank you, small token of our appreciation collectively, and hopefully they'll then also go on to book stays at some of your properties as well, with any luck, using their vouchers. So I think Alex is going to throw up the link to that. And then just to sort of finish things off, just to thank everybody that's been on the webinar today. So our guests, Gemma, Anthony and Wayne, thank you again so much for coming on. David, as always, thank you for joining us. Ian and Alex, thank you for your help hosting today. I should just flag for eviivo customers, we have a masterclass webinar on tomorrow at 4 p.m, focusing on content, and we have a professional photographer on there this week, I believe, around images, tying in with really what Anthony was saying about keeping websites up to date and really almost sort of tweaking them, repurposing them and refocusing them, perhaps in terms of making sure you're promoting the right things to your future guests, what future guests are now looking for as they're going forward and starting to hopefully make bookings. So just flagging that, the eviivo.com/coronavirus page is still constantly being updated, and we're trying to keep that relevant as we sort of move through this process, moving towards hopefully reopening in July. Lots of useful advice on there to keep an eye out for that. And then the events at eviivo.com email address, if you have any ideas that you want to share or questions that you want to ask, or maybe even you want to come on as a guest to be a guest property, drop us a line there, events@eviivo.com, and we can pick it up from there. Good stuff. So I think that's all from me. So thanks again for everybody to joining us today. Very much appreciated. Taking time out on a lovely sunny day like today. It's greatly appreciated, and hopefully you've learned some useful information today. So thanks again. Stay safe, everybody, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.